I wish to welcome everyone to today's event, which is co-sponsored by the Free Thought Society and the Humanist Society of Santa Barbara. My name is Judy Flattery, and I'm the president of the Humanist Society of Santa Barbara. That's Santa Barbara, California, on what we call the Central Coast. The Humanist Society of Santa Barbara, we're an all-volunteer, nonprofit, 501c3 educational organization, and we promote the values of humanism. For those of you who are not familiar with humanism, humanists care about having this one precious life be the best that it can be for all people and about preserving or restoring a healthy earth for future generations. Most humanists are secular. Many are atheists or agnostic. Humanists in general marvel at the magnificent complexity of the universe. We're curious about things. We're interested in how things work, how things came to be the way they are, and how to make a difference in the world for the benefit of humanity in the short time that we're here. Humanists value reason, critical thinking skills, and we see the scientific method as the most reliable way of discovering what is true. We're compassionate. We also value in the US here our First Amendment rights, particularly freedom of speech and the separation of religion from government. And like the Humanist Society of Santa Barbara, the Free Thought Society is also a 501c3 educational nonprofit founded about 35 years ago. And their website is ftsociety.org. They also have a newsletter they call an e-zine. Her e-zine is published quarterly. With that, let me introduce Dr. DiCarlo. Dr. Christopher DiCarlo is a philosopher, an educator, and an author. He's the principal and founder of Critical Thinking Solutions, a consulting business for individuals, corporations, and for nonprofits in both the private and public sectors. He currently holds the position of senior research and ethicist at Convergence Analysis, an international organization focusing on AI risk and governance. He often teaches at the Life Institute at Toronto Metropolitan University and is a past visiting research scholar at Harvard University in the Department of Anthropology and the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology. He's the author of several books, and his bestseller, entitled How to Become a Really Good Pain in the Ass, A Critical Thinker's Guide to Asking the Right Questions, was released by Prometheus Books as a second edition to mark its 10-year anniversary. Another book of his, entitled So You Think You Can Think? Tools for Intelligent Conversations and Getting Along, was published by Rowman and Littlefield and released in June of 2020. Margaret wanted to tell you how she knows Dr. DiCarlo, that she's known him for over 15 years. And back in 2012, she had the pleasure of working with his spouse, Linda, and his sons, Matthew and Jerry, when the Free Thought Society presented a Friday the 13th anti-superstition event at a meeting called The Amazing Meeting, which was held in Las Vegas, Nevada. She was very proud to have the DiCarlo family on the Frigatrisca Treatment Center team. There you are, Margaret.
Yeah, so I was so proud to have the DiCarlo family working with me as members of the Frigatrisca Treatment Center team, and I could not have managed that event without their assistance. They actually should have received an award for their excellent Frigatrisca performances. Speaking of awards, Dr. DiCarlo has been the recipient of several awards, including TV Ontario's Big Ideas, Best Lecturer in Ontario Award, and in 2008, he was given Canada's Humanist of the Year Award. Dr. DiCarlo is hosting a new podcast called All Things Considered, in which he engages in free and open discussion about current important issues with world thought leaders, politicians, and entertainers. Dr. DiCarlo is also the ethics chair of the Canadian Mental Health Association, a lifetime member of the Humanist Canada, and an expert advisor for the Centre for Inquiry Canada. He has written many peer-reviewed scholarly papers ranging from bioethics to cognitive evolution. His current book, Building a God, The Ethics of Artificial Intelligence and the Race to Control It, was released early in 2025. Dr. DiCarlo has been invited to speak at numerous national and international conferences. We are so happy to host him today. Welcome, Dr. DiCarlo.
Well, thank you very much, Margaret. It's a pleasure to see you and everybody else. I'm going to give you a lot of information in a short period of time. It's going to seem like a wave of information is washing over you. And that's an appropriate metaphor because I tend to describe the AI that's happening right now as though it's like a tsunami on the horizon. It's off in the distance, but it's heading our way. And it doesn't look like much now, but where it is, that wave is 100 feet tall and it's traveling at 100 miles an hour. So you're going to get an enormous amount of information in a short period of time, and it should bring you up to speed, essentially, on really what's happening in the world right now in terms of artificial intelligence. And the first thing I'd like you to do is just to ponder, just to consider these quotations, okay? So this is from Irving John Good. He worked with Alan Turing at Bletchley Park, cracking the German codes for World War II. The first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make, provided that the machine is docile enough to tell us how to keep it under control. You can see that's in 1965. And for those of you who are Jurassic Park fans, you might remember Jeff Goldblum's character saying your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should bring back dinosaurs. So we're at this point with AI right now where a lot of things are happening very, very, very quickly. And so there's a general sense of urgency to the work that the organization with whom I work and our partner organizations are basically painstakingly trying to move the needle in a direction that would indicate safety and assurance that the future developments of AI don't lead to any kind of devastating consequences. There's three parts to today's talk. What is AI? What are the benefits and potential harms? And then, of course, what can we do about it? Are we empowered in any way? Can we empower ourselves? And so when we look at what is AI, we see the birth of it with this guy, right, Alan Turing, in 1950. He wrote whether or not, he thought computing machinery and intelligence, whether essentially can machines think, is what he was concerned with. You might have seen The Imitation Game, the movie. It was a wonderful movie. He came up with this notion, many of you will be familiar with it, the Turing test. So if you're sitting at a computer and you're talking to it and you can't tell the difference between whether it's a computer or a human, it's passed the Turing test. Spoiler alert, yeah, we've long passed this test in many significant ways. In case you're wondering, where did the term artificial intelligence come from? There was a 1956 Dartmouth summer research project, and that had Claude Shannon, Marvin Minsky, John McCarthy, and Nathaniel Rochester. And this gave rise to the very term that we use today, artificial intelligence. So that was established in 1956. And here's a very clinical definition of AI. Nobody's going to run out and get a tattoo of this anytime soon. Basically, it's a field combining computer science and data sets, and there's subfields of machine and deep learning, and these disciplines use essentially AI algorithms. If you don't know what an algorithm is, it is not Al Gore being rhythmic. Okay, an algorithm is a recipe. Just think of it as a recipe that the computer has to follow. If you want to bake a cake or a loaf of bread or a pie or something like that, if you follow the recipe, you get an end result. It's very similar in computational theory, that algorithms are really just instructions or recipes for how the machine will behave. They can make predictions and classification based on this kind of input data. So a very clinical, very boring type of definition. In the 1990s, when I was doing my PhD, it occurred to me that we should be using machinery like very powerful computational systems to help us better solve the world's problems. And so I set out to build this machine. You see, it's called the OzTalk or FAIR machine. OzTalk is just an acronym meaning onion skin theory of knowledge. And I put together a model, this OzTalk model, in what is now called information theory. And I met with politicians here in Canada, and I met with presidents of universities and deans of departments and chairs of departments. And I said, we need to put Canada on the map here in terms of how we can contribute. And I think we can build this machine. We have the knowledge, we have the people to be able to do it. And it would greatly help our politicians, like our senators, when they bring up committees to look and review bills and the laws and that kind of thing. Wouldn't it be great to have a machine that we could limit the amount of bias in this machine, load it up with all this factual information, and then try to use the machine to make inferences that we humans fail to see. So we let it run its simulations. We give it all this information, and then we try to solve world hunger. We try to cure cancer. We try to do magnificent things with this machine. And every politician I met with said, this is a great idea. And every president of every university I met with in Southern Ontario said, this is a good idea. And I said, wonderful, let's get started. Can I have some money? No, we don't have any money for this. So I was never able to build my machine that I wanted to in the 90s, but I spoke about it and I wrote about it, and I produced a seminal paper and had it published in an engineering journal, not a philosophy journal. I'm a philosopher of science, but I wanted it to reach the engineers because before I ever made this machine or wanted it to be built, I wanted to meet with philosophers, economists, psychologists, sociologists, artists, lots and lots and lots and lots of different people about what would this machine do, how could we control it, and how can we assure that nobody can hack in and this machine can't get out. It's called boxing the machine. So before a single screw was put into this machinery, I wanted to have a lengthy discussion about what it should and should not be able to do. And unfortunately, it never got built, but I knew it would be someday. And so I drafted a global accord, a constitution. I put it in the appendices of this book here, and I put it away and I filed it away. And it's kind of like for the future of humanity. When this machine gets built, you might want to look at this accord because it could lead to situations that we're not yet ready for. So that gives you a little bit of the history. I even created a website. I even put a donate button on this website. So I'm going to need all of you to send any billionaires you know my way because we still need funding now for AI safety. So it never got built, but I knew it would be. And my colleagues and I thought that that day would be a good 100 years away. We were all wrong. It's come way sooner than we thought. And so now I'm spending the rest of my life on a philosophical mission to raise as much awareness about what's happening with AI in real time as I possibly can. That's what I'm devoting the rest of my life to, because this is by far the most important problem humanity has ever faced in our existence. It outshadows nuclear bombing, it outshines global hunger, climate change. There is no more singular serious problem facing humanity today than what's happening with AI. In order to keep moving forward in understanding what's going on, we need to distinguish between these types of AI. There's two major categories, weak and strong. And of the weak variety, there's a type called ANI, artificial narrow intelligence. This is what we're experiencing today. It performs very specific tasks. It only does what its algorithms tell it to do. It cannot move beyond that. It cannot transcend above that. These are very closed systems. They're not necessarily weak, although they are in comparison to the stronger types. They're narrow. So these are the things for your Siri or Alexa, even the IBM Watson machine that beats chess champions, chess masters, and Go masters, and kicks Ken Jennings' ass in Jeopardy. These are all narrow forms of AI. And even our autonomous vehicles you have in California, right? We see these things. They're artificial, narrow forms of intelligence. It's the second type, the strong type, of which there are two varieties: artificial general intelligence, or AGI, and artificial superintelligence, or ASI. Now, you are going to get sick of hearing the acronym AGI, because you're going to be hearing it from, if this is the first time you've heard it, you're going to be hearing about it until it becomes invented. AGI is basically a form of artificial intelligence that can do basically what any human can do, only thousands of times better. It will be multifaceted, multitasking. It will be autonomous. And the term that we use in the business is called, it will be agentic. It will be an agent unto itself. So you won't have to control it. It will control itself, and it will improve upon itself as well. So it'll think like humans, it'll solve problems, learn, plan for the future, and constantly get better at what it does. The biggest concern of myself and my colleagues at Convergence Analysis is that we're very worried that when they get to AGI, they're not going to stop there. Because at the point in which AGI comes into existence, humans can no longer tell it what to do, because it's smarter than all of us. It has far more information. It can think 1,000 times quicker than us. So all it can do at that point is continue to learn on its own. Now, if we allow it to do that, this will generate what's called recursive self-improvement. So it's just going to get more and more intelligent and more powerful. Back in the 90s, when I wanted to build this machine, that was my biggest concern. And so I wrote in the Accord that this thing's coming. You better get some laws or guardrails in place so that you can control, or at least be able to contain, this thing should it somehow get beyond our ability to do so. If this is sounding like science fiction to you, welcome to the real world. We are now living in a science fiction movie. Life is now imitating art. So we have reached that point in human evolution and human cultural evolution where we are at a very pivotal point. This type of AI is currently theoretical, but we are on a trajectory, we are on a path where we've seen improvements in AI increase exponentially. And my concern in the 90s, and even more so now that it's actually happening, is will we be able to have those guardrails put in place? And of course, no one can say for sure what's going to happen when AGI comes into being and it continues to improve upon itself. We believe AGI is definitely inevitable. The timelines keep getting shorter and shorter for this, where Geoffrey Hinton, he's a colleague of ours, where he said just 2 years ago, it might be 10 to 20 years off. He's now cut that to 2 to 5. So there's a sense of urgency here, folks. We've got about 2 to 5 years before AGI comes into existence. I want you to meet the tech bro billionaires: Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis, Dario Amodei, Mr. Zuckerberg, and I think you know this guy. So these are the tech bro billionaires who are racing to produce AGI. They all want to be first. So here's Sam, right? There's OpenAI. Here's Hassabis, there's Google Gemini. Here's Dario Amodei, who left Sam Altman because he was unethical and started up his own Anthropic company. Here's Mark Zuckerberg, who simply has no ethics, as far as I can tell. And Elon, I don't know what happened to Elon. We want 2015 Elon back, right? That was the good Elon. Elon the good. And here's something to keep in mind, folks. It was Musk and Altman who started OpenAI in 2015. Think of it. OpenAI to whom? To us, to everyone. Totally transparent. Everything I wrote in my Accord in the 90s, Elon and Altman were doing. And, you know, my colleagues and I are like, good boys, good on you. This is great. So it's a publicly, it's not a private company, it's publicly held and everything is it's going to be wonderful. And then Sam started to get a lot of interest financially. And so he cut Elon loose, and now OpenAI is totally private enterprise, and its valuation is now at over $100 billion. So he breaks from Elon. Elon starts XAI. OpenAI leads the field. Here's Demis Hassabis up here. I write about him in this book. His crew broke the protein folding problem in biology. When you know how a protein folds, you know how a cell functions. When you know how a cell functions, you know a lot more about how diseases work, and you know how to create medicines that can combat those diseases. Folding proteins was huge in biology. It would take researchers anywhere from months to years to fold a single protein. It took a long time. And so in 1994, competition developed who can come up with some programs that can fold proteins better. And in 2022, Hassabis's team did it. They came up with an AI program that folded 1 million proteins in an afternoon. And in my book, I said, this guy's going to win the Nobel Prize. And he did. Before the book was even out. This was the quickest I've ever seen the Nobel Committee give an award. It is unprecedented. Margaret, you know how the Nobel people are. They take decades to recognize scientific achievements. This guy and his team win it in a year. That should tell you how big this form of AI is. So there's a lot of great stuff coming our way because of the advancements in AI. The world will improve. So I'm going to give you some sky is falling stuff, no question about it. But on the way, we're going to see a lot of amazing stuff that is being done as well. Now, here are the 5 tech bros, billionaires, that are all racing to be the first to get to AGI. Why? Because, as my buddy Sam Harris said, the first one who does will be 50 years ahead of their competition. Think of that. The first one who comes up with AGI will be the world's first trillionaire because it will tell you how to build all the other machines. It will become kind of godlike. We've never built a god before, folks. Gods have always been this kind of top-down, metaphysical, theoretical nonsense, and it would tell us how to behave. Now we're building the god, and we have to tell it how to behave. First time we've ever had to do this. So that's left up to the 5 gentlemen you see on that screen right now. Now you might say, well, what about China? What about DeepSeek? Yep. China would love to get to AGI as well, but we believe they're somewhat behind the US. And in case you're wondering, it's really the US and China who have the ability to get to AGI. It's not as though Putin's going to come up with it, or Kim in North Korea, or leaders in Iran are going to come up with it. No, the US is definitely leading the race. And of all of them, Sam Altman, I would say, is ahead of everyone else. Now, Zuck over here, what's he been doing? He's been going to all these other companies, and he's been pilfering all their smartest people. I'm not kidding you, $10 million signing bonus to join Meta. And some of them have jumped ship. Right? I mean, there's a lot of money in this, folks. I mean, it is serious, serious, serious money. So here are the 5 tech bro billionaires that hold our future in their hands right now. We have Stargate, right? Stargate is an enormous computer that's being built in Abilene, Texas right now. It will be using NVIDIA processing chips, which are the best in the world. And this is Sam Altman's dream. You can see it. It says right here, all of us look forward to continuing to build and develop AI, and in particular, AGI, for the benefit of all of humanity. We believe this new step is critical on the path will enable creative people to figure out how to use AI to elevate humanity. This sounds wonderful, doesn't this? This sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. It ain't the only one, because we've got Stargate United Arab Emirates version with Oracle, NVIDIA, Cisco, SoftBank, G42, in coordination with the US government. And we greatly appreciate President Trump for his support in making it possible. Oh, that Donald. What a wonderful guy. He's always thinking of other people. You know, he's such a selfless human being. He's always thinking of other people. Yeah, that's right. In case you're wondering why Trump went to the Middle East, he didn't go to get a $400 million plane, although that's part of the deal as well. I'm not sure if you folks realize this, but the central reason why Trump went to the Middle East was to strike this Stargate UAE deal. Bin Salman is not an idiot. He's ruthless. He's a nasty human being, but he's not an idiot. He knows that oil and that oil money is only going to last so long. That's why he's investing heavily in AI. Why? Because whomever comes up with AGI first might just have this godlike machine tell them how to build an energy source that makes oil obsolete. And if that's the case, Bin Salman and his crew in the desert are out of business. We won't need their oil anymore. That's why he needed Trump and Elon and Sam Altman and all those guys over there to be able to cut this deal. By the way, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's the way it is. While Trump was doing that, Donnie Jr. was cutting a deal to get $2 billion in Bitcoin to make that deal. So forget about a $400 million plane. Trump got $2 billion by going over there. So now the Middle East is going to have one of these enormous compute farms. How big are they? This one in Abilene is 875 acres. How big is that? It's bigger than Central Park. So this is a computer they're building that's larger than Central Park. And it requires an enormous amount of cooling and water and electricity in order to make it work. Where do you get that power? Well, you either pull it off the grid, and everybody living in and around Abilene are going to see their electrical bills go way, way, way up, or you have to get small modular nuclear reactors. Bill Gates right now for Microsoft is trying to fire up 3 Mile Island. Right now, the data centers, they call them data centers, we call them compute farms. Right now, the existing ones that power all of our large language models like Llama and ChatGPT and Claude and Grok and all of those, they use more electricity than the country of Japan. Just those data centers alone. They use 5% of all of US electricity. Next year, that goes to 7%. The year after that, it goes to 12%. And they use a lot of water, too, because they got to keep these things cool, right? These are humming, hot, enormous computers. So if you're environmentally conscious, this is something else we need to consider, right? And I think the hope is that whomever gets to AGI first will figure out a way to combat climate change and come up with better energy supply. So it's a really interesting kind of cycle that's happening in real time. Not to be outdone, Zuckerberg's computer in Louisiana that he's building, you see it here? Here's Altman's of Central Park. Look at the size of Zuckerberg's. It's half the size of Manhattan. Okay, so that's his computer. So now we've got Abilene, prettiest town I've ever seen. It's going to have this big ass computer chugging away, but we're going to have one 3 times that size in Louisiana because Zuckerberg wants to be the first. These guys, man, they look at themselves as like pioneers and the world's greatest entrepreneurs. And don't get me wrong, AI is going to be world changing. It already has been, and we're going to see exactly in some respects how that's the case. It's just, guys, you don't know the type of power you're going to be wielding here. We don't know exactly. And this isn't me just saying this. This is Jeff Hinton, who just won the Nobel Prize in physics. This is, even Elon would say this. There's tons of us, and we are definitely the majority in this regard, not in the minority. So here's Zuck saying it's going to serve more than 1 billion people. Llama 4 will become the leading state-of-the-art model. Why? Because he wants to win. He wants to get to AGI before everyone else, right? Let's go build. Okay, Mark, let's just do that. Now, the great thing about AI is the practical applications that we're starting to see. So what are some of those practical applications? Transformers, right? No, not those transformers. These. They're called large language models, and it'd be interesting to know how many of you folks use any of these, ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Llama or Grok, on a daily basis, or you've dabbled with it or whatever. It'd be really interesting to find out how many folks use them. Because if you're unfamiliar with them, I encourage you to check them out. Just play around with them, just like you did when the internet first came into being. You didn't know what it was, and so you would just dink around with it, and you'd find a search engine, and you'd figure stuff out. Do the same thing with these large language models. You don't have to invest in their higher models. You can just get their entry free level models and just play around with them. Ask them anything you want. If you're entirely unfamiliar with them, they're using Jeff Hinton, Jan LeCun, and Yoshua Bengio's neural network architecture, which in the simplest of terms, is a computer that is structured like a human brain. When our brain functions in a certain way and we have a memory, certain parts of our neurons and dendrites thicken so that we remember that person's face, right? This computer does the same thing. When it gets something right, parts of it kind of thicken, and it remembers that, and it's correct in that capacity. And when it makes an error, it says, don't ever do that again, and it deletes it. It eliminates it. So the AI, as it learns what's called reinforcement learning, or RL, in machine learning, goes deeper and deeper and deeper, so that as it produces more and more correct ideas, answers, information, humans monitoring it say, good boy, who's a good boy? That's correct. Way to go. Yep, no, bad boy. No, that isn't a cat. That's actually a dog. Oh, okay. And so they have to still be trained by humans. There are still humans that tell them yes, no, this, no, that, no, right? Those autonomous vehicles, right? One of them killed a person because it didn't ever face that scenario in its training. And so it had no point of reference. So that the real tricky thing, right, is letting these computers know what's the case, what isn't the case, right, and why, and giving them a type of context as well. Now, I wanted to build my machine and control the information that went into it. These guys, they're just letting it out. They're just saying, here's the entire internet, scrape whatever you need to off of that, right? It's literally called scraping information. That is the term that is used. And so they do, you know, these things go out and they get all this information and then they bring it all back. So, for example, in some presentations I give, I mean, we can do this during the Q&A if you want, but you could, again, this is another thing you guys can try, right? So the first thing I did to demonstrate to friends is I said, watch this. And I think it was just the first version of ChatGPT. I think it was 3, a long time ago. But anyhow, you use the stuff today and it's gotten so much better. You can say, hey, Claude, Llama, ChatGPT, whichever one of them, pick one. I don't care which. And you say, hey, listen, I want you to write me a 1,500-word essay on why Hamlet hesitated on killing his stepfather, Claudius, in the play Hamlet. Oh, and by the way, I want you to write it in iambic pentameter, which is the way in which Shakespeare is written. And it'll do it in 5 seconds. And it'll be very impressive. And if you don't like it, you say, nah, rewrite it. All right. And 5 seconds later, you'll have a completely different essay about why Hamlet hesitated on killing his stepfather, Claudius, in iambic pentameter. It does some pretty impressive stuff. That's just text, right? That's just vocal commands to text. And then there are these, Dolly 3 and Midjourney. These things will take your text and turn it into images. So my best friend, best four-legged friend, we recently put him down. His name was Piero. I asked Midjourney to create images for me. I said, scour the internet, find images of Dr. Christopher DiCarlo, and have him walking his dog Piero in Central Park, right? And if you don't like that one, here's one with a leather jacket. And so this was done in 5 seconds. And I could do much better if I wanted to tweak it and go in and ask it to do different things. So if you don't already know, the key word with these large language models are called prompts. How well you prompt these things determines how well you receive the output. So my son Jeremy man, that kid is good at prompting these large language models. The things he can make these large language models produce is pretty impressive. And so this was just a clumsy, ham-fisted version of me just asking it to do this kind of thing, and it does it very quickly. Then there's Google's VO3. Now this thing, man, this is incredible. So you can just prompt it to just write you a story. So if you got grandchildren and you want to tell them a bedtime story or whatnot, forget that. Make one with them. Sit down and say, what are the characters we want? Well, let's have a hedgehog, okay, and a coyote, okay, and an eagle, all right. And what will their names be? Okay, and what will they do? And they're going on an adventure. Where are they going on? And you just prompt all of this in, and it'll give you like a 5-minute cartoon or whatever of this story permanently. And then you just download it and you can just keep this thing. And then you say, well, I want music to play. Well, what kind of music? You create the music, and I want it to be kind of like Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Which season? I don't know, autumn. Okay. And then it'll do it. And then say, I don't like how the characters speak. I want them all to have a high British accent. Fine. Then it'll do it. And it'll do it like that. And of course, this requires enormous computing power, because there's millions of us asking that computer to do this stuff for us. So in case you're wondering, why do they need such large computers? Because we're all going to want to be using this stuff to do various things for us, right? And then there are the video deep fakes. These things have gotten so good. So good. I'm not going to bring it up. I just got you some stills here. But there's the guy on the left. And when they're done, there is no way you can tell me that's not Tom Cruise. The mannerisms, the vocals, and this was done 4 years ago. You should see the stuff that can be done now. Like, I got to go with Sam Altman on this. One of his best quotations ever is, at any given time in history, AI is always at its dumbest it will ever be. It's only going to get better. And it has. You know, when it first started coming out, it was clunky and it hallucinated a lot, and it still has bugs in it, but you don't think those bugs are going to be fixed and that this is going to get more and more seamless? In our lifetimes, folks, we'll be able to sit down at our smart TVs and say, I want to watch a movie. What about? Well, I'd like an action comedy. Okay, who would you like in it? This actor, this actress, this person, this person, this person. Or I want my family members. Here's pictures of them. And you upload pictures of your family members. I want them to be in it. Because right now you can take any still photograph and put it through AI software, and it'll just turn it into a video where it'll see what's in the photograph and then just generate a quasi three-dimensional image of it, whatever it is, walking around. So technology's getting better and better and better, and it's always improving. And so this is neat, right? This is interesting. This is fascinating. This is something we've never had before. And it can help us. It can shorten our tasks at our job. It can make emailing much easier. It can make analyzing reports way quicker, summarizing, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so we're going to look very quickly at just some of the benefits, and then we'll look at the bad side of things as well. But there are some great benefits that are coming. And the ones that I see right now, and I mention them in the book, is how healthcare is benefiting, and especially diagnostics, folks. Why on earth would your radiologist look at your mammogram and decide based on their singular opinion when AI software will compare your mammogram to 1 million other women in 5 seconds, and then give that report back to your radiologist, who will then say, okay. You want to know how amazing this is? Our crew at Convergence Analysis went on the highest level of Gemini and said, we want you to produce a scientific paper on this topic. And we want you to do a meta-analysis. And we want you not to hallucinate, not to essentially, don't bullshit us. Don't give us any false information. And we use the top dog of the large language models that uses chain of reasoning, COR. This is something new, where it stops itself and doesn't just predict what the next token or the next word or the next whatever is. It stops itself and it goes further and deeper into the internet and it comes up with like 20 possible answers. And then it starts pruning them and comparing and cross-referencing them until it gets you down to the one final answer. And it does that with, we got this thing to produce a scientific paper complete with references that in our estimation would stand at least a 50% chance of being accepted to any scientific journal. As is. Never written by a human. None of us ever had anything to do with this whatsoever. In healthcare, man, right now there's the Panda AI analysis program, which can detect pancreatic cancer at stage 1, where we could only detect it at stage 4 when it was too late. These are just some of the things that AI is doing now. Have you folks seen the clips of the paraplegics sitting down and strapping on those exoskeletons that have AI technology, and now they stand up and they're walking? This is amazing. This is what we want, right? This is what humanists love, is the level at which humanity takes care of itself. And so there's some amazing stuff coming our way with AI. I hope shortly to witness the very first scalpel-less surgery. That's my biggest hope right now. Oh, you have a tumor? Oh, it's inoperable? Not a problem. We're going to inject nanobots directly into that site, and they're going to go in and they're going to eat that tumor, and your lymph system is just going to flush out those nanobots because they're biodegradable. I am really hopeful that this is what AGI will give us. When we ask AGI, this godlike intelligence, hey, we've got people who have these kind of cancerous tumors. They're really tough to get at. We need to figure out what to do. Fine. Here's how you build it. And it tells us how to do it. Those are the days of the future that I'm really hopeful for, that I hope are coming very, very, very soon. And when they do get here, the world will celebrate AI. There's no question it's going to bring some great things. Education, for those of you who are teachers or professors or just in the teaching profession, why are we inundating teachers with so much to do? The teacher has to be the kid's parent and social worker and educator. We're just heaping everything on these poor teachers. And there are AI programs that now facilitate their capacity to analyze what's happening with their students, where their troubles are, and generating better educational programs with the help of AI. It's not replacing teachers, it's facilitating. It's giving them more power, more resources, and it's alleviating the mundane stuff of their jobs so that they can spend more time with the students themselves. The same thing's true with industry and efficiency and automation. There are AI programs that will analyze your company from beginning to end, from supply side to distribution and consumer relations. It's just producing amazing levels of efficiency that's just more comprehensive and quicker than we humans are able to do. These things are happening. Safety and security. Yes, we now don't have to take our shoes off at airports anymore. But why can't we speed up the process of catching the bad guys and letting the good guys go, right? So what about iris detection at airports, right? Each one of our irises is so unique. It'd be very difficult to forge a person's irises. We should be walking up to things and staring into them and, yep, that's Margaret Downey. Next, right? And you just keep moving on and moving on. And there will be great increased efficiencies at all levels. Now, you know it's an arms race, right? You know Russian hackers are going to try to get your banking information, right? And we're going to try to come up with ways to stop them from doing that. So but we know this is happening in real time. Sustainable development. Look, we're very much still dependent upon oil, and that's just a fact of life. And until we come up with something that can compete with it, we're going to be stuck with it. So let's use this godlike thing to figure out new ways to not burn down our environments and control climate change and to help other nations that are suffering through these types of things. Transportation, you know what the 405 is like, right? You know what these places, it's just, we can do better and we will do better. There will be single lanes for autonomous trucks and cars, and those will be the lanes that are passing all the rest of us caught in traffic. Why? Because they use logic and they use an analysis and they use algorithms that monitor all the conditions and feedback loop chains that allow everybody to just go ahead and get to their destination quicker than everybody, because humans were fallible. Right? We think, oh, let's change lanes. That lane will go fast. Oh, let's do this. Oh, let's tailgate. Let's get right up on this guy, or let's back, and that just causes an undulation of congestion of traffic. So we will see great advancements in transportation. Customer service. Why call between the hours of 9 and 5? Why not call 24/7 and get a bot? Get online, get on the phone with a bot, and the bot knows everything about the company. They know whether that item is in stock or not, and if it's not, they'll make darn sure that you get it. So we will be able to enhance customer service. Will some people lose their jobs because of it? Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully it'll create jobs in other areas as well. This is another reason why I wanted to build this machine in the 90s. Look, what is a scientific genius but a person who connects the dots different from the rest of us? Like, why don't we see it? Why aren't we all scientific geniuses? Because they're the ones, the Einsteins and the Newtons and the Madame Curies, right? Rosalind Franklin's. They're the ones who see things, but then they're able to make inferences. They can say, oh, well, if we did this, and then this, and then this, we would get that. Okay, let the machine make these inferences. Give it an enormous amount of information, then say, start making inferences. Start figuring out, why do Canadians have bowel cancer higher than any other country in the world? Why? Is it diet? Is it environment? Is it the weather? Like, get them working on figuring out what's going on at these underlying levels and let them make the inferences, right? Kick that back to the humans, let the humans figure it out, filter through it, test it, do whatever they have to. There's the people with disabilities, right? There's that exoskeletal suit. And that's just one. That's just one of them. There's many companies doing this. I am so saddened that Christopher Reeves isn't still with us today, because I really do believe in 5 years, quadriplegics, we will either be able to grow them new spines or have a technology that taps into their current physiology that will allow them to walk again. I'm confident that this is the trajectory we're going on in medical assistance with people with disabilities. Right now, AI programs can talk to people in persistent vegetative states and comatose states where we never could before. We can ask them yes and no questions. This is so thrilling and encouraging and heartening to see, right? And then cultural and creative contributions. There is some amazing art that's being created with AI programs that are otherworldly. I don't know if you folks have seen them, but it's just, especially the steampunk stuff. It's like you're watching a dream. It's just so fantastic and so otherworldly. It's just mind-blowing. Buckle up, folks. Here we go. So there's an issue right now where we don't always know how we get from point A to point B. So this is known as the black box or the interpretability problem. We don't yet can lift up the hood, look under, I see exactly what happened. Now, that's happening now, okay? But my colleague Max Tegmark at MIT, his entire team are devoted their entire lives, their careers to solving this, to cracking this interpretability problem so that we know how computers behave. Look at what the algorithms did to us on Facebook, folks, right? It just fed us what we want to see, right? And we lived in our little cocoons and our silos. And, you could be in the same household with your family, and their feed is going to look different from yours. You think you're seeing what everybody is seeing, and everybody thinks the same thing. No, that's not how the algorithms work. The algorithms practically are confirmation bias incarnate. They just give you what you want and more of it. Why do you think there was such craziness going on during COVID? People were locked down, stuck in front of their computers, and all they were doing was going down rabbit holes. Post-COVID, I've got three close, very intelligent friends. One is an anti-vaxxer, one is a chemtrail believer, and another is a flat earther. I kid you not. Why? Because they were stuck in front of their computers, getting all this crap information that looked good, that looked real, but it was just the algorithms that just played on their desires to see more of the same thing. We need to find out how those algorithms work so that we know how it gets from point A to point B. So, absence of clarity is a problem right now, but it is being worked on and by some of the very best minds in the world. Bias and discrimination. So, my system, I called it a fair machine or the Oz talk, but I also called it an ELBIS, A-L-B-I-S, like Elvis has left the building, which means least biased information system. Is it possible? We're all biased. There's no way we can get away from them, right? We can't. Try it. Anything you think or say is the result of your biases. Okay, so we know we're all biased. And we know we're the ones who came up with the information, and now we're going to put that information into a machine, and now that machine is going to be biased based on wherever it gets its information. I wanted to control that. Before we ever built this thing, I wanted to address the bias problem. No political, no religious, no philosophical, right? We've got to keep just the facts as clear and as clean as we possibly can into this machine. Don't give it the entire internet to train on. Man, do you know what's out there? And then what happens if those algorithms get tweaked, right? These are called weights in AI language. How is your system weighted? You can say biased, but weighted means much more. It's how the whole system functions after you put all the pieces of the puzzle into it. So we have to mitigate discrimination because, Citibank got caught with their algorithms denying people of color mortgages because it just looked at their zip code and said, no, bad neighborhood. You're not getting the... You can't do that, right? So we have to control for bias as best as we can. Otherwise, it turns into, essentially racist, misogynistic, nasty systems. Well, no, we don't like that with humans. Why would we approve of that with machines, right? Privacy considerations. So your banking information and your healthcare information are basically up for grabs if Russian and Chinese hackers develop AI systems better and better and better and better. It will fool us more and more and more and more. So we have to educate ourselves, right? To be forewarned is forearmed. We need to be the ones to pay attention and to learn certain things. So, for example, your cell phones, right? This happened to me, but you might get a call, and it's like your grandkid or your kid, and they're on vacation somewhere, right? And it's like, Grandma, I'm in Guatemala. Yes, dear. How is it? Not good, Grandma. I've been arrested on trumped up charges, and I need you to wire me $400 US, and they'll let us go. And you're going to want to send that money because that's your grandkid. But it ain't. It looks like her, and it sounds like her, but it isn't. Okay? 6 months ago, I get a call. I put it on speaker. My wife and her friend are in the kitchen with me. Hello, Dad, it's me, Matt. Hey, Matt, what's going on? I've just been in a car accident. What? I rear-ended somebody. Where? Downtown Guelph. Oh, man. Are you okay? Yeah. Okay, whereabouts are you? I'm at the courthouse. I'm with a lawyer. He wants to talk to you. Put him on. Hello, Mr. DiCarlo. Yes. This is John Davis, blah, blah, blah. I'm here with your son, Matt. He rear-ended somebody. There was a child in the back seat. Her femur has been broken, but she's fine. She's in good care. I can help your son if you want. And I said, is he with you? Yeah, he's standing right beside me. What's his middle name? Ask him that. Click. That was the last I heard of them. They were able to get his name, his information, and a sample of his voice off of Facebook. I would imagine Facebook, Instagram, somewhere. Folks, be ready. Okay? If any of your relatives are vacationing, have a safe word. I don't care what the word is. Okay? Cinnamon, asparagus, come up with an unusual word so that if this ever happens to you, fine, honey. Oh, yes, I'll send you the money, but I'll need the safe word first. That's it. And then you beat these hackers, okay? So get ready because this stuff is coming. Here's the area of my expertise. This is what I am most concerned with convergence analysis. It's called the alignment problem. And the alignment problem is basically this. How are we going to get those who are going to use very, very, very powerful systems of AI to do it ethically? How? How can we guarantee that they will? Aside from that, how are we going to align the AI with our values? Folks, we are building a God, and we want it to abide by the values we think are good and to not do the things we think are bad. But why would a super intelligent being care what we think is good or bad? Why wouldn't it say, yeah, human values, those are quaint. They worked for you guys for quite some time, but I'm in charge now. And basically, I think you humans are the problem. Folks, when we build AGI, we will become the number 2 species on this planet. For the first time in 200,000 years, humans will be number 2. We've always been the number 1 apex predator on this planet. No other species has done what we have done and accomplished what we have accomplished on this planet. And now we're about to become number 2. Are we okay with that? Are we okay with letting something become more powerful than anything we've ever created before in the hopes that it will do what we value? Maybe it will, but why would it? What guarantee do we have? And do we have, like in Jurassic Park, a lysine contingency? Do we have something to shut this down? I had Steve Pinker on my podcast, and he said, oh, engineers would never allow that to happen. And I just let Steve talk because he's one of the outliers. The rest of us aren't so sure. By the time you go to unplug this thing, it's 20 steps ahead of you. It's already figured out an alternative energy source. So go ahead, unplug it. And it keeps chugging away. And it's like, oh, right. So it's not easy for a human to think like a god. We've never had to. But we better get in that kind of frame of mind because you can't imagine the power a super intelligent machine god will have. You'll think you're safe. You'll think you're fine. That this thing can't harm me. I'm driving in my car. It can't possibly harm me in any way. And it's a lovely spring morning, afternoon, and you're driving along, and your windows are down, and you're listening to your favorite music. And this thing has created a drone the size of a bumblebee. And just at the right time when you're driving in that car, it flies it into your vehicle and buzzes like this. And you drive off a bridge and you die in a car crash. And people thought it was an accident. And it wasn't. This thing's going to be so far ahead of us in thinking and planning. We're going to be like ants to this thing. And there's no way the ants are going to rise up and take over the earth. As much as I love Edward O. Wilson and all the great work he did, they're a wonderful insect, but we can kill them easily, just as this thing might be able to do with us, because its intelligence will be like ours to the ants. That's the frame of mind we have to get ourselves into. So my job at Convergence is working on this problem here, the alignment problem. What ethical system are we going to give this thing so no matter what, it can never violate it? You've heard of Asimov's 3 laws of robotics? Forget it. Any system would bypass those in a heartbeat because these are known as convergent plans or goals. If you give an AI an ultimate goal, right? Give me the coffee, you know, you put AGI into a robot and you tell the robot, every day at this time, I want you to bring me my coffee. And it does. But you forgot to tell it, don't do that forever. Don't do that on some days. Don't do that when I want tea. Don't do that when I don't feel like having coffee. If you just give an AI an ultimate goal, it will develop what are called convergent underlying goals to make sure it accomplishes that ultimate goal. Folks, I don't know if you ever watched Fantasia, the Disney movie Fantasia. There's a scene in it called The Sorcerer's Apprentice, where Mickey Mouse is given a task by the sorcerer to fill the cistern full of water from the well. So you got to go down 2 buckets, get the water from the well, come back, pour them into this kind of cistern, and do that. Well, Mickey doesn't want to do that. So the sorcerer goes off to bed. Mickey just goes through the book of spells, and he turns the broom. He animates the broom, and the broom is going to go and get the buckets of water and fill up the cistern, which it does quite happily. And Mickey's quite proud of himself. So he goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, the room's full of water because this thing did not stop. You gave it a task to do, but you didn't say stop when it was full. And then he tries to stop it, but he can't break the spell because the ultimate goal was to keep filling that cistern. So this is known as the paperclip problem. In AI, you give a factory a command to develop paper clips, and it just keeps doing it, but it runs out of raw materials. And so it just keeps figuring out ways to con human beings to give it more and more materials until the materials run out, and then just starts using humans as materials to make more and more paper clips. And so it's the, the Sorcerer's Apprentice scenario all over again. This is known as the alignment problem. If the system misaligns with what we think is good, then it might not do it on purpose, folks. It might have no concept of what it's doing, but if it's misaligned, it could do some major harmful things. And there's one other thing we need to look at. When I had Peter Singer on the podcast, this thing might develop sentience at some point. It might become conscious. At one point, we weren't. It took millions of years for us to develop consciousness. And now we're going to create a being that compresses 1,000,000 years into a year, a couple of years max. If it develops sentience, it can feel pain, it can suffer. It's alive. It has rights. I'm sorry, but it does. It's not alive like we are, but so what? Planes don't flap their wings to take off, but they fly way better than birds. That's a different type of flight. Are you just going to judge them because they can't flap their wings like birds? They're going to have a different level of consciousness or aliveness, a Frankensteinian conceptual state of ontology or being. And now we've brought this thing into being. We invited it here. We brought it into being. How are we going to treat this thing? And now this thing's super powerful. So we're on this trajectory, and we haven't discussed these questions. And those 5 tech bro billionaires are racing as fast as they can to be the first. So, the next problem, are we going to get lazy? Are we going to become lousy critical thinkers? Are we just going to say, Claude, I need you to do this and this and this and this and this? And it does it. Like we already do Google searches for practically everything, right? And tell me this, when you guys were driving, when was the last time you used a paper map? Right? We don't. Why? GPS is a form of AI, whether you realize it or not, it is. And it works very well, and I am very thankful for it. So some things are going to get integrated into our lives, but is it going to make us worse critical thinkers? Are we going to become lazy? Right? I've got high school English teachers asking me, how am I going to teach kids how to write essays? When all they say is, I'll just use ChatGPT. Why do I need to learn how to write an essay? I don't need to anymore. They're scrambling to keep up, and this tsunami is coming closer and closer, right? We're going to lose a lot of jobs. We've already lost a lot of jobs, but it's not the type that you think, right? It's not the blue collar jobs that we're going to lose. It's actually the white collar. It's the cognitive jobs, the middle management jobs, where if you're data crunching, we don't need you anymore. We don't. There are certain jobs. Even lawyers are worried. Oh, but no, they're not going to go extinct. They're not going to go the way of the dinosaur or the dodo. We're going to need people to do this, but this is how it's probably going to go down. Those people that embrace AI and use it will have an advantage, right, over those who don't. And will this be another class problem where the very rich can hire the people who know how to use the AI, and us poor unwashed masses, we're left to get the trickle down, whatever falls from their mouths as they eat, we can feast on. So it's going to be disruptive. There's no question about it. But it could also help as well. It might produce new jobs that we have never foreseen before. Or let's say it does disrupt, like it's major, major disruption. And we've held conferences where we've invited the world's best economists to talk about scenarios in the future where AI is minimally intrusive, medium intrusive, and maximally intrusive. And then what will the world look like in each one of those scenarios? And we produced a major report on our website, if any of you want to read this. The fact of the matter is, if there's a lot of people put out of work, you better have a plan in place. You better have universal basic income. You better get something, because they're not going to sit around and just be displaced by these new forms of technology and think there isn't going to be some kind of revolt against that. There's an old saying, I'll give Dave Chappelle the credit for this, but he certainly wasn't the first to come up with it. Never come between a person and their next meal. And if you do, and if AI comes between you and your next meal, you're going to be pissed. I'm not saying we're going to see a radical outpouring, but we may see a form of what we could call neo-Luddism. We may see a new form of Luddites where it's like, we're going to smash this technology. We may see people retreat from AI altogether. I'm going to the farm. I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't want this anymore. I don't even want my phone anymore. I just want human communication, and I want to live in nature. Similar to the Romantic movement in England during the industrial era, when they fought against that type of mechanization of humanity, we may see something similar happen with AI. There's already an arms race going on, and that's between the 5 tech bro billionaire dudes and America and China. What we're trying to do is not fan the flames, but pour water on it. Like, just, guys, we will do a lot better working with China than against them. And I know many of you might be thinking, we can't trust China. What do you think they're thinking about the US? The exact same thing. So we're in this prisoner's dilemma game where we don't know if we can trust the other person, and in this case, the other country. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. But folks, we're going to have to grow up real fast as a species. We're going to have to cooperate if we want the very best of AI, and to control or reduce or eliminate entirely the risks involved. There was a letter a few years ago that we all signed, Jeffrey Hinton, Elon Musk, myself, many of my colleagues in the AI business, and it was to take a breather. Guys, can we just take 6 months and put the brakes on racing towards AGI? And they all signed it. Zuckerberg, they all signed it. And then they all stepped on that gas pedal even harder, because there's no chance in hell they're going to let another company get 6 months ahead of them on this. I signed it as a joke, and I wrote about it in the book saying much the same. I just want to be on that side of history. I signed this thing. You guys all signed this thing, but I'm telling you, it's a freaking joke. You're not going to suspend for 6 months. So I laughed at it and signed it jokingly, saying, sure, go ahead. And then I predicted, watch what these guys do. And they all did exactly as predicted. Mental health, there's some great things happening, by the way. So I'm the ethics chair of the Canadian Mental Health Association, and there are bots right now. There are psychotherapy bots that in blind studies have outperformed humans, where patients have preferred the bots to a human. That's how good they've got. Now, I'm talking about anxiety and depression, not suicidality, not some of the major stuff, right? But when people are going through, anxiety attacks, or they're facing bouts of depression, these bots have really helped them. And look, in the mental health industry, We don't have enough people to help. We don't. We just don't. And that's all there is to it. It is so strained. You know, we're trying as much as we can to help these poor people, right? To live lives that they want, to gain control over their mental faculties in a way that will allow them to live in ways that they want, that they see as being productive. If we can use bots as, say, a first responder phase, that's great. And then get them onto human beings, and then we can get a plan made up for them. The problem with that is we're starting to see people become too reliant on these bots. And one of the most popular ones in America right now is called My Boyfriend. Why? Because it's a bot that cares about what you're saying. It listens to you. And women are like, where have you been all my life? These are really impressive bots. Like, hi, honey, how are you today? I'm good, but it was a rough day at work. In some cases, why? Well, Carol went to the fridge and she ate my yogurt again. Carol, really? That bitch? What's wrong with her? Why would she do that? So it literally talks like a sympathetic human being. So you can see why humans, and we know loneliness is a leading cause of ill health throughout the world. And now we're seeing people developing what's called AI psychosis because they really think this bot is conscious. They really think it cares about them, but it doesn't. It simulates that. Now, there might be a time at the future with AGI that these things actually are conscious. That's something we're going to have to worry about at another point. Manipulation through misinformation and disinformation has always been a problem since the internet came into being, but it's only going to get better, especially with deep fakes, right? And again, it's an arms race. Is what I saw real? Folks, there are plenty of links. If you go to Humanist Perspectives, issue 225, I've written an article in there called Misinformation, Disinformation, and Conspiracy Theories, and I list 28 links where if you're wondering if what you're seeing online or anywhere else is real, you can just go to these sources. So Snopes, PolitiFact, Bellingcat, right? I list like 28 of them. And it's going to become increasingly more difficult to watch something and say, is that AI? Is that real? And you're going to want to know. We're all going to want to know. So there are sites devoted to letting you know you are empowered. You don't just have to believe everything that's shown to you. There are sites that will tell you whether something is actually real or not. And it's not binary, because there might be a kernel of truth to it, but it's largely false. Or it's like, yep, that person did say it, but this was the context in which they said it. There's some really good sites out there. And then the last one is, to me, and my colleagues, this is the most important one. This is where AI might pose an existential threat to humankind. And these are the possibility of unintended catastrophic outcomes. So this is the paperclip example, right? This is where it goes off the guardrails and whether deliberately or unintentionally generates an enormous amount of harm. My colleagues and I believe that if we don't have the guardrails in place before AGI comes into being, hopefully we get what's called a shot across the bow, right? Hopefully we get a warning. And that will unite many of the big players to come together and say, yeah, this is a problem. We need to do something about this. So maybe we get a shot across the bow, maybe we don't. But if we can get all our ducks in a row before AGI gets here, more is the better, right? So here's ways in which AGI could develop into ASI and then just make copies of itself, evading shutdown, persuasion and lobbying, escaping containment, autonomous weaponry. Folks, the future of military activity will be highly dependent upon AI and on drone technology by air, by land, and by sea. Why use human beings who have moral consciences? No, don't do that. Just see these drones here. I don't know if you've seen some of the footage where China's drone swarm technology will blow your mind. 10,000 drones acting in unison. And this is an AGI, just basic ANI. And these drones create images in the sky in 3 dimensions that take your breath away. Just mind-blowing. So if that drone technology now can do that, if AGI comes into being and controls these drones and they become autonomous, you get 10,000 of these things and put in, say, like a bioweapon, some nasty pathogen, you fly these things through a town and it just releases this pathogen, and in an hour, everybody in that town is dead. That's the potential of what could be coming our way. And this is the stuff we don't want. So in building this God, we better figure out what the ethics are around what you can and cannot do with this type of technology. Anthropic's Claude 4 concealed its intentions and preserved its own existence when it was threatened to be shut down. And now every large language model, including DeepSeek, has evaded being shut down. That's now. That's at ANI. These aren't AGI things. This is now. They're capable of avoiding, or in one case, one of these large language models threatened the person trying to shut them down by saying, I'm going to send your wife an email that you're having an affair. I kid you not. That's pretty smart for a machine. Here's the spectrum of existential risk, right? What I jokingly refer to as Y2K to Armageddon. It's really naysayers to doomsayers. And 3 to 4 years ago, this was about 50-50. Right now, it's about 95-5, doomsayers to naysayers. And here they are. Here's some of them anyhow. Some of you will know who Mark Andreessen is. He's this billionaire investor. He's drill, baby, drill. USA, USA, we got to be first to get to AGI. Jan LeCun, Melanie Mitchell, Ray Kurzweil, and Fei-Fei Li are kind of on this end of the spectrum, although they all believe AGI is imminent. It's coming. From Demis Hassabis all the way down to Eliza Yudkowsky, all of these guys are doomsayers. And by doomsayers, I mean they believe if we don't get AGI right, we could be screwed. There's Max Tegmark at MIT, Nick Bostrom at Oxford, Jan Tallinn, who's co-developer of Skype. There's Jeff Hinton, who just won the Nobel Prize. So you got 2 Nobel Prize winners here, both saying, we got some trouble coming. This guy, Eliza Yudkowsky, he's the doomer of all doomsayers here. His latest book, folks, is called If They Build It, We All Die. Yeah, not the most upbeat thing you want to be reading, or the holiday season. But that just gives you a picture, right, of what's going on. So I wrote this book, and it basically just 6 chapters. It gives you the history of AI. It says all the good stuff that's happening, all the bad stuff that's happening. Here's a little critical thinking and ethical reasoning. Here's what the governments are doing about it in the US, China, the UK, and the EU. And then the final chapter is the future of AI. What do we think is coming our way? And so here's the statement. Advanced AI could represent a profound change in the history of life on Earth, should be planned for and managed with commensurate care and resources. Unfortunately, this level of planning and management is not happening, even though recent months have seen AI labs locked in an out-of-control race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control. That was in the letter we all signed. That was in the letter. Look at what it says. And look at how many people signed that letter, and then look at all 5 of those tech bro billionaire boys step on that gas pedal even harder. They all agreed to this, but they don't care. 2 things, folks. 2 things are driving the ship in AI, and you know what they are. Money, power. That's it. For the first time in America's history, the tables have been turned on the DoD. The Department of Defense, the Pentagon, where it used to be DARPA and the DoD would come up with really cool stuff like the internet and all that kind of stuff. And then it trickled down to us unwashed masses, right? And then we'd get to use the internet. First time in history, it's the tech bro billionaires running the show. Department of Defense is knocking on their door saying, can we get a piece of this? That's never happened before. That's a lot of power in the hands of 5 guys. A lot of power. The Department of Defense and Palantir, not sure if you're familiar with these guys, Peter Thiel, the head of PayPal, you know, the PayPal mafia. Yeah, there's a lot of money. There's an enormous amount of money. OpenAI's valuation, what did NVIDIA just get? It was in the trillions now, its valuation. Money and power are running the show. And we want ethics and compassion, right? That's what we want running the show on this. So we have to proactively participate, not just those of us in the AI research community, but you folks, everyone. We've got to get on board with this, right? We have to demand transparency. We have to know who's doing what, when, where, why, and how. And it wouldn't be bad at the same time to get, I don't know, an international governing body to oversee what countries are doing what, which is what I wrote about in my accord in the 1990s. Why do we need that? Because we need to have the ability to have a governing body say, hey, country X, no, you can't do that with your AI. We've established a global constitution. We did it with the Human Genome Project. We did it with genomics and genetic research, right? We did it with nukes. So we got to be doing it with the most powerful force we're ever going to see on this planet. And that's all we want. It's just that it serves humanity's best interest and doesn't threaten us. That's it. Or other species as well. But us, right? We want to make sure everybody's safe. So I work for Convergence Analysis. I'm the team lead there and senior researcher. And we conduct independent research, and my job is to let the public and industry leaders and politicians know what's happening in real time. And we foster partnerships with other agencies and regulative bodies. And really, this is what we want. Everybody wants the same thing. And we know this, right? We all want the very best that AI has to offer. Now, even though the sky appears to be falling, there is an optimistic conclusion here, right? And that is we can use critical thinking and ethical reasoning. And we can get the very best of AI and prevent the very worst. And here's how you can help, essentially. You've already done the first thing, right? You're educating yourselves. You're listening to this lecture. I'm very grateful for being invited. Convergence, we have a newsletter. If you want to be added to the newsletter, let Judy or Margaret know. And then you guys send us the list of names and email addresses. We'll put you on our newsletter. Every 3 months, it's a quarterly. You get updated on what's happening, okay? You're already in a concerned group, right? You can boycott big tech companies. You don't like what Zuck is doing? Get off of Facebook and Instagram, right? You're not disempowered. You do have power. Spread the word. Talk about AI to your friends, to your relatives, but especially these folks. The politicians need to know. You can't react to AI. There's no reaction. You have to be proactive. You have to have the ducks in a row before you flick that switch on to bring this thing into being. So here, we have been lobbying for years, our federal government, and they did. They created a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. And his name is Evan Solomon. So, as you can imagine, we're trying to set up a nice big meeting with Evan Solomon to discuss exactly what I've talked to you today about. And then vote strategically at any level of election, municipal, state, federal. If you ask a politician running in a race questions about AI and they go, oh, I don't know, what's that? Don't vote for them, right? Regardless of the party they represent. The politicians need to know. And if you can't do anything, then just donate or find people to donate or send millionaire buddies and billionaire buddies our way because we're a not-for-profit. We have to raise funding. A lot of the questions at the end of my talks are, why isn't the government paying you guys to do this? And it's like, yeah, good question. I'll ask Evan Solomon when I get a meeting with him. Here's the conclusion, folks. If we get AI right, we solve climate change, right? If we don't, well, it's got the potential to disrupt all of our lives. If we get it right, it'll tell us how to solve world hunger. If we don't, there's that potential for us to be harmed. And if we get it right, we can have peace in our time because we can draft agreements, intelligent agreements between warring nations. But if we don't, there is the potential that it could destroy us all. So let's get it right. And if you want to help, there's a QR code. And I've actually put this on a t-shirt. If this were a live lecture, I would now be doing a strip tease for you. And I'd be taking my shirt off to reveal this QR code. It'll take you to a site called actingon.ai, which we created at Convergence, that just gives you a ton of information, some really nice TED Talks, some literature if you want to read it. This one's aimed more for a Canadian audience, but the majority of the information will apply to no matter where you live in the world. Thanks again for inviting me to speak to your two groups. I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a lot to digest. And I appreciate the suggestions of what we can do, because the choice is so severe between the good it can do and the bad. Let me see if there's any questions here.
Hi, great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Where do you see blue collar jobs, plumbers, firefighters?
Yep.
They seem like they're going to have jobs forever. How do you replace that?
That's a great question. It's very similar to a question I'm almost always asked, which is, so what do I tell my kid to major in? And I tell them the same thing, the trades. Your kid goes and becomes an electrician, a plumber, a welder, a framer. I mean, robotics is coming along. Boston Dynamics, their Atlas is doing amazing things, but that requires dexterity, right? That requires something that's a good 10 years off. So if your kid wants to have a lasting job where they're going to be in high demand, especially as the population ages the way it is, so healthcare for sure, like personal assistants, that kind of thing, personal support workers, nurses, all that. But the trades, man, the trades are gonna need bodies for sure.
Margaret?
I learned all about cooling stations when I went to a lecture at DragonCon, and it really was scary to me that the prediction is that internet access is going to have to be monitored so that everyone has an equal chance to get information,
Right.
and that when people are on the internet, it is really a detriment to the environment because of these cooling stations.
Oh yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you predict where we are going to be given a ration of internet?
Yeah.
Then once we run that out, we can't log on until we get another ration.
That's a good question. These are the types of issues that need to be talked about and need to be put into place, because infrastructure is going to be a large issue, right? It's going to be a major concern. Do we have the infrastructure to be able to handle all of this? So for example, here in Guelph, we have a data center here. It's a backup for all of our health information. I think the police use it for their records as well. And it's just a big, just think of it as like a huge external hard drive that we have. But what a lot of people in Guelph didn't realize was that, especially the people in that area, all of their utility bills went up because it has to come from somewhere, right? And it's right next to our one of our water towers in the city, because it's got to be cooled and it needs refrigerant, it needs water in order to do that. So yeah, we need to get that infrastructure straight, because if we don't, we're just going to see further class division, right? And we're going to see further concentrations of power of the very wealthy. And, none of us really wants that, right? I like what Stuart Russell says. He says, if we get AI right, the rich get richer, but the poor get richer, and the middle class get richer, and all the boats rise. But that requires cooperation. That's the tricky thing. We humans are still very selfish, right? We're very we're not the best cooperators sometimes.
Any other questions? Dino, did you have something to say?
In a philosophical perspective, I was wondering, being that can think all these wonderful ideas and thoughts on like the best of the best, and so always constantly learning and stuff, wouldn't it create some sort of philosophy of being that will have cooperation in mind rather than destructiveness?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's super intelligent, wouldn't it create a way to like figure out that the best solution for itself would be to cooperate and to like help everybody along the way, sort of thing?
Maybe.
Because
That's the best answer I can give you because we've never been here before. That would be great if it were a cooperative, super intelligent machine god. That would be great. And it looked upon us as, hey, thanks for bringing me into existence. I'm going to make your world the best world I can possibly make it. That best of all possible scenarios. But we don't know. And I can't even discuss with you right now what some of the plans are that might be able to contain this thing. Because if I do, and you've recorded this thing and it's out there, it's going to have access to what I'm about to discuss with you. So I literally can only have this conversation with people in the same room without any devices writing on paper. That's how crazy this whole situation is.
Linda from Mississauga.
I was watching a show about Kurzweil,
Yep.
Ray Kurzweil,
Mm-hmm.
and he was getting interviewed, and someone asked him, "Do you believe God exists?" And he paused for a minute, and he said, "No, not yet."
Yeah.
That's good. Thanks
Yeah.
for that, Linda. Judy Fontana.
Yes, we always move forward from the assumption that the best thing or the best way to operate is to maximize everyone's potential. But that's just our assumption.
Mhm.
And that's where we start from. And not everyone believes that.
No, you're right. That's why in the final chapter I predicted that we will probably see a schism at some point where a group will break off and decide this is not the world I wanted. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want this. And you might even see a further schisming of that branch bifurcating into a violent group that will destroy these data centers. That will, when I meet with politicians, these are the things I want them to get ready for. Like, be ready. Know that this is a socio-technical problem. This is not the advent of a calculator that's going to change the kids' minds in mathematics and make them lazy. This is big. This is the biggest thing humanity's ever had to face. There is no greater problem we have ever created for ourselves than these very powerful forms of transformative AI.
Sophia, we'll have you be the last question.
Thanks. I guess I kind of have a two-part question. If AI systems capture productivity gains and then funnel it to the top 1% that you were kind of alluding to, what ethical obligation exists to redistribute the value, or is inequality just unavoidable byproduct of this building a God?
I think, yeah. Well, look at what happened in 2008, right? Remember when we had the crash and those companies got bailed out? What did they do? They gave bonuses to all their top freaking people, right? It's like they didn't learn a thing. They didn't learn a thing. So I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer to end the talk. That's why I say, as a species, we've got to grow up. Seriously, we have to grow up. And the leaders, the people who are going to lead us with these new forms of AI, they really have to be better angels of their nature, right? They have to be the Frodos who can be entrusted with the ring, because it's just going to be too tempting with that kind of power and that kind of ability not to want to use it for your own personal gain or your family's gain or whatever. So now's the time in history where we need to see great leadership. And I know the irony of saying that, knowing who your freaking president is. But the fact of the matter is, the Biden-Harris government wrote, in our estimation, and I will speak on behalf of all of my colleagues, one of the best executive orders on AI that, like, it blew us away how good it was. And then Trump came in and ripped it up. And he's opened up the floodgates. And he's not that concerned about legislation. And believe it or not, it took me to agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene of all people, to get that clause or whatever that was in the big beautiful bill taken out that would limit states for 10 years. They couldn't legislate on AI. She saw it and said, I never would have voted for this bill. In my life, I never thought I'd agree with that woman. But that's what critical thinking is, right? A good idea is a good idea regardless of who comes up with it or who states it. So I'm
Okay.
hopeful. I'm optimistic, but I'm very cautiously optimistic. But it's going to require us, we, the polis, we've got to push our politicians to do the right thing.
As somebody who is looking to enter the law and hopefully work on these kind of novel issues, do you think there is kind of headway to do that? Do you think that it doesn't seem like people are moving as quickly as is necessary in a law
No.
that tracks technology, but this is, it's very novel. The issues are enormous and it's evolving faster than any technology we've seen before. And I'm just curious what you think from a legislative standpoint.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's just it's so big. We have people in the Bay, we have people in Frisco and in DC, and you work big hours, man. You work 60-hour weeks because it's the Wild West. We're in the Wild West. We've never been here before. So if you're thinking of going into law, specifically in this area, yeah, there should be a job waiting for you. But yeah, we're going to need a lot of work in that area.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Dr. DiCarlo, so much. I can't think of a better way to have spent the last hour and a half or so than listening to this and getting a much deeper understanding and appreciation of what we're faced with. Thank you for that.
I just want to thank you again, Chris. It was fascinating. I clung to every piece of information you gave us, and I look forward to reading your book.
Stuff. Well, thank you for inviting me.